Welcome to the channel. My name is HyperTom-oose, and this video is going to be a timeline of the Classic Spyro Series. I will not be covering the Legend series or the Skylander series because I didn't play those games, so they're not going to be included in this timeline. I have seen videos online where people suggest that the Legend games take place after the Classic games, and then the Skylanders games take place after the Legendary games. But that's just headcanon as far as I'm aware, and that's never been stated anywhere. But with all that said, we're just going to jump into my version of the Spyro timeline, and I hope you guys enjoy, and here we go. So, obviously, the games all begin with Spyro the Dragon. I'm not going to be including, like, dates, because dates were never specified in the game. It wasn't, like, year 1998, even though the game came out in 1998. So Spyro 1 is the first stop on our timeline. The game begins, Nasty Nork uses some magic and turns all the dragons into crystals. And Spyro says, "It looks like I've got some things to do." And he goes off on his adventure to save the Dragon Realms. And he gets all the dragons, he saves the day, beats Nasty Nork, and he gets interviewed at the very end of the game. And this is what happens. Nasty Nork, presumably, shoots another blast of energy and recrystallizes the dragons. And Spyro says, uh-oh, here we go again. So it's kind of implied that there's an off-screen adventure in between Spyro 1 and Spyro 2. Spyro just goes around and he refrees the dragons. So I guess that's just like a meta way to say you can just keep playing the game and go and find the dragons again. So that leads into the second game in the series, Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage. And the game starts off with Spyro talking to Sparks. He says, "We haven't been there since we kicked Nasty Nork's butt. How about it, Sparks?" He's talking about Dragon Shores. So after their adventure with Nasty Nork, they want to go to Dragon Shores. And they go over to the portal for a vacation at the beach. Last one there's a... He says last, but the subtitle said left. So it says last one there's a... And then we jump to Avalar. And we have the professor. And he says just a few more adjustments to these orbs and everything will start working perfectly. They're trying to intercept a dragon to defeat Ripto. It's working! It's working! I've got a dragon. And Spyro appears in Avalar. Spyro defeats Ripto for everyone on Avalar, Gateway to Glimmer. And the game ends with Ripto falling into a pool of lava. And it being the first appearance of Ripto, some people believe that he died. However, in the epilogue, it says, one of Spyro's friends found a new toy. So it's... people are kind of like iffy on the epilogue's canon, but I believe that they occur. And to me, this means that Ripto was defeated, and he was kind of put away in a prison, I guess. Like, he was held captive by the dragons. So Ripto is no longer a threat. He's locked up, off-screen, and we go into our next adventure, which is Year of the Dragon. So the game picks up with the Year of the Dragon, and there's all the dragon eggs in the Dragon Realms. And the sorceress sends Bianca and the Rhinox to kidnap the dragon eggs to bring them to the Forgotten Realms because they need them for the magic. Dragon Elder says, "Find the eggs and bring them back, Spyro." So Spyro goes and travels to the Forgotten Realms with Hunter to collect the dragon eggs to bring them back. While there, it's worth noting, Bianca is a novice at magic. She is trying to create things, and as seen here, the rabbit thing gobbles her up. And another cutscene, it was hard to like show in like still frames, but that flower behind the rabbit's foot there on the right, she tries to do a spell that makes it larger, but it shrinks. So she's still a novice. She's not doing very well with her magic. And that's something that's needed to be pointed out. Bianca is a novice. And then that leads to the end where Spyro defeats the sorceress. And all the dragons are brought back to the Dragon Realm. So you can see a little baby dragon there. So take a look at that little baby dragon and how he appears, how he is age-wise. And then, after that, we have the epilogue, which shows that Nasty Nork and Ripto are holding a summit to discuss the Spyro problem. So at some point, Ripto has broken free from his captives, the dragons, from when it said the dragons found a new toy. So Ripto's free now, and he's discussing the Spyro problem with Nasty Nork. Which leads into Enter the Dragonfly. This is where people might disagree with me, because some people think that Season of Ice happens after, and some people think Enter the Dragonfly happens after, and then, some people think it's a split timeline, but I always believe in one continuous timeline, so here we go. We're going into Enter the Dragonfly. And it's implied that it happens after the Year of the Dragon, because in the opening scene there's a giant balloon of the sorceress, so it's implied via the context clues that this game happens right after Year of the Dragon. And I want you to look at the baby dragon there on the right. He looks an awful lot like that one, right? I'm not saying that they're the same dragon. I'm saying that age-wise, it syncs up pretty well from one ending to the opening. So we have Spyro. He needs to join the other people. We got Hunter and Bianca, and they're all there at the festival to give the baby dragons their partner dragonflies. And then who shows up? Ripto shows up. And this is important. It says, he's talking to Gulp, and he says, I will send you back to the place I found you, unemployed, in Molten Crater, begging for work from Nasty Nork. It says Nasty North here, but he is saying Nasty Nork. So, he got defeated, he was captured by the dragons, and during that, Gulp and Crush were unemployed, it seems. And I think this is where he found Crush and Gulp, begging for work from Nasty Nork at the summit. So I think that kind of flows pretty good, pretty well. And the whole novice thing that I was talking about with Bianca, it plays here too. So Bianca tries to perform a spell on Spyro to help him use elemental breaths, and it did not work. She says, that didn't exactly work right. I'm still learning, Spyro. So that's worth noting, because in her next appearance, she is not a novice. So in Spyro Year of the Dragon, she's shown trying to perform spells and doing them poorly, and that carries over into Enter the Dragonfly, where she's still not doing things correctly. She's trying, but she's still a novice. And then we end with, well, everything is finally back to normal, isn't it? And Spyro gives a little wink to the camera. And that ends Spyro Enter the Dragonfly. So it's been pretty straightforward. 1 through 4 all, lead into one another pretty well. And this is where we kind of get into, the debates with the fandom. This is where I believe that Spyro Season of Ice takes place. So their adventure has just ended, and they are going on vacation. Spyro always wants to go on vacation. And while Spyro was off having his adventure, fighting against Ripto, it seems that Grendor was left alone in the Forgotten Realms and has caused a scene. So Bianca is no longer a novice. She is now a full-on sorceress. While you go and see what's happening in the fairy world, I'll check the Sorceress's spellbook for something we can use to find out who's behind all of this. And it's worth noting that Bianca now can perform magic flawlessly. She helps repair all of the transporting portals to get from place to place in the fairy world. So this game happens after Enter the Dragonfly. And the game finishes with Spyro saying, "I'm going back to the beach, and this time I'm going on a real vacation. No more Rhinox, no more missing fairies, and lots of drinks with umbrellas." So Spyro Season of Ice ends there, and the next game picks up directly after this. So it has to go from Season of Ice to Season of Flame. Those games are connected. Just like how Spyro 1 and 2 are connected, this and Season of Ice are very connected. So you can't, like, put Enter the Dragonfly in between these. And we go from Season of Ice to Season of Flame. So it opens up with them going back to the beach, and we have Spyro and Sparks flying, and Hunter and Bianca in a balloon coming back to the beach. Sparks says, "It's about time we finally got some vacation time. Isn't it? Getting rid of all those Rhinox was a real pain in the..." And he gets stopped by Spyro before he says anything naughty. But, again, without trying to, like, repeat myself over and over and over, they're referencing the adventure they just had. They just beat all those Rhinox, and it was a real pain. So this game happens right after that. And we have Ripto. Ripto has returned. Grendor was the one who was behind everything in the last adventure, and while he was off in the fairy world, Ripto came and he stole all of the fireflies from the Dragon Realms, which caused their fire breath to turn into ice. So you have to go around, recollect all the fireflies to give the dragons back their fire breath. And Ripto says, "You've interfered with my plans for the last time, you miserable dragons. My powers have grown, and I will defeat you." And of course, because he is the villain, Spyro defeats him. The Elder says, "Spyro, you're back. How did you fare against the evil Ripto?" And the day is saved thanks to Spyro. Now this one is where there isn't much connective tissue between this adventure and the last one. I put it here because it doesn't really conflict with anything else. And it, timeline-wise, like release date order, this is where this game happened. So this is one of the few games that doesn't really have a set place in the timeline. It could be pretty much anywhere after Season of Flame. But I like to stick it here because it, like I said, release date order, and it doesn't really conflict with anything. So the game starts, Ripto has been defeated since Season of Flame, and he poofed away, and he is off at his area, his realm. And the professor has invented something to keep an eye on Ripto. So this is a little peephole that they're looking at. And a malfunction happens, and Ripto comes through the portal, and he says, "I'm going to bring all of my Rhinox through this hole, and then warp them throughout all of the lands. Instant domination. Too easy. Blah ha 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 ha." So this game, Attack of the Rhinox, Ripto has brought the Rhinox, and he's trying to take over again. So Spyro saves the day, and the game ends with, "The lands have been saved, I've managed to seal the rift for good now." And Ripto is, in the post-credit scene, Ripto is being babysat by the butler robot. Ripto has not been transformed into a baby, despite what it looks like. He's just a pipsqueak, and he's dressed up like a child, and the sorcerer, or not the sorcerer, the butler robot is trying to feed him. So Ripto is very embarrassed, and he was defeated. And that is where we end the Attack of the Rhinox. That brings us to A Hero's Tale. So Ripto is off the scene right now, and we go into a new adventure. The reason that this game is placed here is mainly because of one character. Blink the Mole. This is your first introduction to Blink. As seen in this cutscene, it says, "Thanks for rescuing me, Spyro. My name is Blink. Blink the Mole." So, you meet Blink for the first time in this adventure. That's why this adventure has to be here. And at the end of the game, the evil red dragon, the evil elder dragon named Red, is defeated and shrunk down. And the professor says, Spyro's about to crunch him. And the professor says, "Oh no, Spyro, don't do that. He doesn't deserve to get off that easy. I'll take him from here. I'm sure I could find a good use for him in my laboratory." And it's implied that he's rehabilitated through the professor. So the professor works with Red and makes him good again. And then we jump into a cameo appearance of Spyro in Crash Twinsanity. In Crash Twinsanity, Spyro's treasure has been stolen, and he's flaming some of the evil doctors. This is set here in the timeline because of aesthetics. Honestly, that's the only reason that I'm putting this here, because Spyro doesn't interact with Crash. He doesn't interact with Aku Aku. He does not seem to know Crash at this point in time. So, he looks the same as he did in A Hero's Tale, so that's why I put it here. Which then leads into Spyro Orange. So this is headcanon, but Cortex saw Spyro flaming the other guys, Engine, Tropy, and Embryo, and he laughs. He goes, "Oh, ho, 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 ho." So I think that this kind of set a plan in motion in Cortex's mind to maybe get that dragon to work against Crash. So we have Cortex working with Ripto now. So Ripto and Cortex are together, and Cortex says, "Your army of Riptocs will be even more formidable now that I have genetically modified them." And Ripto replies, "True. They have strength, they know no fear, and they are cleverly disguised." So Cortex saw Spyro flaming the other doctors, said, "Hey, I could use this to my advantage." He got Ripto, so now they've got the Riptocs disguised as Crash, and they also have them disguised as Spyro. So in Spyro's adventure, they're disguised as Crash, so Crash will fight Spyro, and vice versa. So Crash is fighting Spyro-looking Riptocs, and Spyro is fighting Crash-looking Riptocs. So they're pitting them against one another. And this is the first meeting of Crash and Spyro because of how the game plays out. And you have the professor saying, "Spyro, I'm glad you're here. Orange beasts have been causing trouble." So he doesn't say, "Oh, Crash is here and Crash is causing trouble." He specifically says, "Orange beasts are causing trouble, and it's up to you to save the day." So then we have, that is what the Riptocs look like. They have Crash masks on, so they look like Crash, and Spyro doesn't know who they are. So yes, Spyro was in Crash Twinsanity, but Spyro and Crash never interacted with one another, and Crash has seen multiple dragons throughout his adventures. He saw the dragons in Wizards and Lizards. He saw dragons in Crash Bash. He's seen dragons in Crash 4, It's About Time. So Crash is he's seen dragons. So seeing Spyro flaming the other evil doctors in Crash Twinsanity, he didn't interact with Spyro. It was just another dragon to him. So now this is their first official meeting. So you have Spyro here attacking the Riptok that looks like Crash. And this is them finally showing up face to face. And this is their first interaction. Spyro says, "Stay away from my home, you crazy orange monster." So he's looking directly at Crash, and he doesn't know who he is. After the battle, Spyro says, "Wait, you're not like those other orange monsters. You must be Crash, huh? I'm Spyro." So this is their first meeting. The game then has them team up, and this is why I made a point to say that Blink was first met in A Hero's Tale. Because in this game, Spyro knows exactly who Blink is, and he even has a nickname for him now. His name is Blinky. So he says, "Blinky, what's up?" And Blink says, "Spyro, Crash, Nina has kidnapped the Coco and Professor." So this game has to follow A Hero's Tale, because in A Hero's Tale is when you first meet Blink, and in this game, Spyro already knows who Blink is. So that's why this game has to happen at this point in the timeline. And then the game ends with Spyro saying, "Thanks for all the help, Crash." Aku Aku says, "We'll be seeing you around, Spyro." And Spyro's reply is, "You can count on it." Which you actually can count on, because Spyro will indeed see Crash later in the timeline. This leads us to the final full game in the Classic Spyro timeline. The Shadow Legacy. In Spyro the Shadow Legacy, Red has been reformed, rehabilitated, and he's no longer a little shrunken guy, and he actually helps Spyro. He teaches him some spells to fight against the evil sorcerer, the bad guy of this game. So that's the only thing worth noting for this final adventure. You can see that the dragons have the similar appearance to their A Hero's Tale look. So it follows that game. Like I said, Red has now been reformed, and they reference the Hero's Tale adventure in this game. And that would be where the Classic series ends if it wasn't for the crossovers that occur within the Crash Bandicoot series. The next game, chronologically, that happens in both timelines would be the Grand Prix from Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled, the Spyro and Friends Grand Prix. As said in my Crash Bandicoot timeline video, the campaign adventure mode of Crash Team Racing and the Grand Prix do not happen at the same time. The Grand Prix, or I guess the correct term is the Grands Prix, happen chronologically way later in the timeline. So the adventure mode of Crash Team Racing happens like way earlier in the timeline, but the Grand Prix happens later. It's not at the same time as the adventure mode. So Crash and Spyro have officially met their buddies in Spyro Orange and Crash Purple. They have an adventure apart from one another in the Shadow Legacy, and then they are reacquainted in Spyro and Friends Grand Prix, Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled. There's not really a big bad to defeat in this. It's just them racing together. It's just fun. And then that leads to the final canonical appearance of Spyro in his timeline. And that is Crash on the Run. In Crash on the Run, somehow there is a dark version of Spyro. It's not explained where this fella came from. There is a dark Spyro in the Skylanders games, but this is Classic Spyro. This is not Skylanders Spyro, so this would not be Skylanders Dark Spyro. This is a classic version of Dark Spyro. The Dark Spyro comes through a rift portal that was left by Nefarious Tropy, the female version, and he's teamed up with Nasty Nork, and they're attacking Crash. And it's up to Spyro to come help. So Spyro comes through the portal, and with Spyro, they defeat Dark Spyro, and the day is saved. And that is where Classic Spyro's timeline ends. There are some non-canon appearances of Spyro In the handheld version of Crash Nitro Kart, Spyro is a raceable character, and he also has an appearance in Crash Team Rumble, All Fired Up, Season 3. This is a non-canon appearance. As much fun as it is to have him show up, and they have a little comic side story to try and implement the story into it, Crash Team Rumble is the first game in the Crash Bandicoot series that does not have a story mode, it does not have cutscenes. It is the first game that doesn't really have a solid place in the timeline, and it could be considered non-canon to people. I do have a video that I'm going to be putting up on my channel where I feel it would logically fit in the Crash timeline, but for Spyro, this does not occur. So, chronologically, that is the end of the Spyro timeline. It starts off with Spyro the Dragon, goes to Spyro 2, Ripto's Rage, Spyro, Year of the Dragon, Spyro Enter the Dragonfly, Season of Ice, Season of Flame, Attack of the Rhinox, A Hero's Tale, Spyro Orange, Shadow Legacy, and then we have his appearance in Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled, and we finish off with Crash on the Run. So, my Bandicrew, that is my classic Spyro timeline video. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions or opinions as to why you think my placement is incorrect, like if there's something in the games that make it impossible for what I said to occur, please let me know. I hope you enjoyed, and we will see you in the next video. Take care. Have a great night.